I ran across this. I wanted to share this with you. Advances in technology threaten to overwhelm young minds to the point of distraction. Students' memories will atrophy because so much information is so readily and instantly available. Students will know that they will know a great many things, but have learned nothing. Technology is overwhelming young minds. Memory will atrophy because information is so instantly available. Students will know a lot, but they'll really have learned nothing. So you would imagine this would be a diatribe against the internet. Well, no. This was Socrates, worried about the development of writing in the Greek alphabet 2,500 years ago. Distraction versus concentration is a big, big theme, not just in life, but certainly integral in meditation practice. When I was doing some research for this talk and looking for some quotes from the Satipatthana Sutta, on the webpage, I saw a highlight of a video of a conversation with Carl Reiner and Mel Brooks, and I almost clicked it, and I realized, wait a minute, no, I'm doing a talk on concentration. Let me stay with this. Concentration is one of the key factors in awakening. What I'd like to talk about with the time I have with you is an exploration of what the failure to concentrate is all about. Talk about some of the levels of concentration that you can achieve in your meditation practice, and how do you balance concentration with mindfulness and with letting be. And then I'd like to end with some kind of tangible suggestions for your practice, and also for just working on cultivating more of that satisfying sense of concentration in your life. So I think we all are pretty familiar with the failure to concentrate and the consequences. But you may know the story of why a lion tamer uses a chair in the ring with lions. Most lion tamers in the circuses of, earlier years, they died in the ring. But there was one lion tamer who was very, very successful, and he didn't die in the ring. He actually died of natural causes in his 60s, and his secret was the four-legged stool. So he'd have his whip and the four-legged stool, and he would hold the stool up, and maybe you've seen photos of this. And what happens is the lion gets distracted by the four legs of the stool, and it's not sure which leg to focus on. And because it can't focus, it waits. And this is what allows the lion tamer to work with lion. Clyde Beatty in the 1900s was the one who kind of brought this forward. He left the circus, left to join the circus, and he went from cleaning cages to becoming a really renowned entertainer. This discovery of the four-legged stool is pretty interesting, because I would imagine, like me, you probably at times feel like the lion. And not just 10 legs of the stool, you've got 10 things to do today, and because of the distraction, maybe you can't get started. We live in an age of incredible distraction. There's so much competition for your attention, if you haven't noticed, and maybe you've noticed too. It gets louder and louder and louder. And so you end up just staring at the chair. Where do you start? And when we can't hold that sense of focus, the consequences can be pretty dramatic. You may know the New Yorker cartoon of these two guys sitting on the street corner with their brown bags, with their bottles, and one of them is saying, I owned a house in San Francisco and I owned a house in Switzerland. I ran 3 companies. I had my own jet. And then I switched to decaf. You imagine your thoughts are like a web browser. You know what it's like when you're on the web and you just get distracted by all the shiny things. The other day I was looking for a replacement for a lost water bottle top. And I kind of woke up, who knows how much later, reading reviews of a camera lens I already own. So if you want to ensure a sense of deep dissatisfaction in life, let your mind be run by other people. But if you want to have a little more satisfaction in your life, you can actually learn how to focus and concentrate. It's a muscle that you can develop. And this muscle of concentration is not just giving you the satisfaction of getting things done, but it truly is one of the factors of awakening that can point the way to being truly free and being awake to reality. And so looking closer at concentration can be really helpful. I certainly found it helpful to be more aware of the different ways I can concentrate. Back in high school, a friend of my brother's told this story of how on his motorcycle, he was cruising along pretty fast on a highway. And then suddenly there was a pileup of cars. And the car in front of him was it was an MGB GT. And if you're not familiar with those, they're really, really low to the ground. And as he described it, he knew he was going too fast to stop in time. And he said, everything slowed down. He said, I could feel the rush of air. I could feel the weight of the bike shifting to the front wheel as I hit the brakes. I could calculate the time to impact perfectly. I felt the front wheel hit the back of the MGB GT, and I could feel myself launched in the air. And he said, this is so cool. He said, I was absolutely aware of this thought as I flew like Superman over 5 cars. I thought, this is really cool. But when I land, this is going to hurt. And it did. He ended up breaking a wrist and a couple ribs and so forth, but went on to tell the tale. Time slowed down, and suddenly the moments got really, really alive. Daniel Ingram, in his book, Mastering the Core Teachings of the Buddha, writes extensively around the deeper levels of concentration, or the jhanas, and what's possible when you train your attention. And he talked about this thing I had never heard of before, which was how many noticings per second can you achieve? In the space of 1 second, how many individual noticings are there inside of a second? So a little experiment. This will be just brief. You can close your eyes and take 3 slow, deep breaths. Relax on the out-breath. And when you're ready, choose one of these breaths and notice how many details can you be aware of in one breath. And notice the effect as you cultivate that sense of inner absorption. If you like, you can open your eyes. I find that inquiry kind of mind-blowing. How many noticings per second are there? I believe he says you should go for 10, and that just seems impossible to me. So on a long retreat, I thought, well, let me go for 3. Can I notice 3 elements within 1 second? It's kind of crazy making, but it's really, really interesting. What we're talking about here is samadhi, or concentration. It's the 6th factor of awakening. First, establishing mindfulness, or non-judging awareness, or viewing the moment-to-moment experience without the lens of greed, hatred, or delusion. It's about cultivating a sense of investigation, like a fascination, a willingness to kind of break down your moment into all the different components of which that moment is made. It's about cultivating kind of a aliveness, a sense of determination, a sense of resilience to kind of stay in that moment-to-moment experience. And it's also about cultivating a certain kind of joy of discovery, a really sense of deep, deep, joyous curiosity about what's arising, a sense of like, I want to be here. Another factor is cultivating calm and tranquility. As you've heard me say many, many times, perhaps, the more intimately you relax, the more intimately you can feel. So tranquility opens up the moment. And these are all the conditions that support the arising of samadhi or concentration. And there's a real tendency, certainly I cultivated this for a long time, to think that concentration is meditation. And what you may notice is that if that is the primary objective in your practice, to have moment to moment to moment awareness in your meditation practice, it's a setup. Because it will set you up perpetually thinking that you're not good enough. It'll set you up for straining in your practice, for perpetually thinking that you're failing. And as one of my teachers said, in many ways, concentration is a byproduct of all these other factors. Rather than a beginner's practice, it's about setting the stage for concentration to arise. Cultivating that sense of non-judging awareness, the willingness to be with what is arising, cultivating a sense of resilience, also a quality of joy, a quality of relaxation and calm. These are the conditions that you can create. And then part of it is that when those conditions are present, concentration is like a gift. It's something, not so much something you're working for, as something that just arises. So you can think of concentration as really kind of two things. One is focusing, like focusing your mind. But another definition is kind of a gathering. And we tend to think of meditation as cultivating laser focus. But you can also think of it as a gathering of awareness to come into harmony. And of course, when you begin to practice concentration, you'll notice the distractions that arise, which are really kind of cross purposes of the mind. You're giving your mind a job to do. I'm going to focus on the breath. And then the mind starts thinking about what kind of salsa you enjoy the most, green or red. You bring your attention back to the breath, and a few moments later you're thinking about the first time you had a really, really hot salsa and what you were going to do. So what, of course, occurs in concentration and one-pointed awareness is it reveals everything that isn't here and now, or it reveals everything that moves, the multiple concerns in your mind, the multiple emotions, the stories that come and go, all the unseen, unfelt aspects are suddenly highlighted as a byproduct of concentration. And so you realize that when your mind is fragmented, the mind can't settle. And then the question becomes, how do we settle the mind? Because the mind will go in all directions simultaneously. 50,000 thoughts a day, just churning. So the antidote is simplification. Breath. Just this breath. Of course, you can use any anchor. You can use sound. You can use the feeling tone in your body in this particular tradition. But coming back to the simple experience of just this breath. Where do I feel this breath on the inside? What you'll notice is that there are times in your life when concentration is effortless. Think about when you're absorbed in something you really love. You get access to that flow state. Everything falls away and you're just there. A really good book, a really good movie, a really wonderful meal, time in nature, playing with animals, moments of really, really deep intimacy. You're not trying to concentrate. There's just this sort of upwelling of the moment happening by itself. And so in meditation practice, when you may not have such an easy access to a concentrated flow state of the mind, kind of what happens is that we have to look for skillful means. And part of that is relaxation, kind of relaxing the outer layers of the problem-making mind, coming back to the simplicity of here and now and the breath, or here and now and the sounds, or here and now and the sense of aliveness in the palms and fingertips. That will, over time, develop more of a sense of natural concentration. The analogy that's so helpful is if you've ever trained a puppy. You get this cute little adorable puppy and you say, sit. The puppy has no idea what you're talking about. You push her little bottom to the ground, you say, sit, and boom, she's gone. The interesting thing about training a puppy is you have two choices. One is to have stand over it and punish it if it moves. I don't think anyone feels you're going to get a very well-adjusted puppy. But the other is kindness and consistency, recognizing this is what puppies do. Puppies wander. And this is what your mind does. Your mind wanders. And so there are many factors here, but one factor is kindness. And the other is consistency. Recognizing when the mind wanders, that's actually a moment in meditation when you realize, oh my gosh, I haven't thought of my breath and how long has it been? It actually can be a moment of mild celebration. You just woke up. And as you come back again and again and again, as you bring that puppy back and you say sit, over time, the puppy starts to sit for longer and longer periods of time. So when it comes to cultivating concentration, there are two things to think of. One is the returning of attention to the object. So when the mind wanders, you come back to the breath, or you come back to sound, or you come back to feeling. It's the art of starting again, as if it's for the first time. Quite often, it's easy to get grim about your practice, and you realize, oh, there I go again, and you want to rush back, try to get a hold of the breath. And it's really helpful to recognize that you don't have to rush back. Part of starting again, and this has been a big part of my own practice, is recognizing, can I make this pleasurable? Can I associate pleasure to that recognition that my mind is somewhere else? And can I actually invite my awareness to relax back into the body? And I find relaxing the tongue, softening the belly, feeling the soles of the feet, feeling the palms of the hands. That helps to kind of set that stage of calm and relaxation. And then to feel the breath again. That again and again and again, if you look for the pleasure, it's almost like you're kind of rewiring your brain a little bit. Because it can be quite pleasurable to realize when you're tied up in a knot around some issue, and you realize that you can let it all go and re-relax and re-arrive and receive the moment. Starting over can be immensely pleasurable. So one element is this practice of begin again. But another element of concentration that's important to point out here, I think, is that it's one thing to re-arrive and start again, but it's another to actually sustain attention. And some people are really good at starting again, but then, of course, that puppy mind is just wandering. And there's something really powerful about sustaining, about lingering with your anchor, lingering with the object of your attention. So I had shared in the former meditation a few ways that are really, really helpful. One is to count your breath. Some find this very helpful, some find this really irritating. Mostly I find it irritating, but there are times when just counting each inhalation from 1 to 5 has a way of entraining my attention back to the here and now. Another wonderful technique is to sense if you can compare the length of this breath with the length of the breath preceding. And here it's like you're throwing a stick for the puppy. You're giving the puppy a job to do. And it can sometimes create a real sense of absorption. And you may recall that part of the training in the Satipatthana Sutta is to notice when the breath is long, to notice when the breath is short. You're not trying to control the breath, but you're inviting this sense of relaxed, deepening absorption into the experience of the breath that can shift your consciousness, shift the state of your mind, shift your physiology. I think it's important in meditation to continually lower your standards. There are times when concentration will be effortless. There'll be times when concentration seems impossible. But remembering that this is a practice ultimately of allowing yourself to bring a sense of moment-to-moment, relaxed, non-judging awareness. So these two practices of starting again and sustaining can be really, really helpful. One of my key teachers talks about the word steady. What we're cultivating here is steadiness, and this kind of leads into the next of the factors of awakening of equanimity or steadiness. Being steady in your posture as you meditate. Cultivating steadiness in the mind, and steadiness in the heart, and steadiness in presence. There's so much on this topic of concentration, and I look forward to exploring more about the qualities of a concentrated mind, because it is truly amazing the power of concentration. It's like taking sunlight and sending it through a magnifying glass where it's like can be laser focus. You can burn a hole in a leaf. So much you can do with concentration. And I'll be talking about this more, but I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the ways you can bring concentration in your day-to-day practice. Many folks, myself included, find in a daily practice where you're buffeted by all the winds of life that it can be tremendously challenging and tremendously difficult to create a sense of sustained moment-to-moment awareness. And what I find quite in a very powerful way is the impact of intensive practice. And I know all the retreat centers are shut down right now due to COVID, but if you have the opportunity to do some sustained practice, I really encourage you to do so, because some time of intensive practice is definitely going to create a shift for you, but it'll also inform your daily practice. And I remember once doing a month-long retreat, which was pretty mind-blowing. And in the beginning, my mind was not concentrated at all. And I really felt pretty hopeless about it, because the more I just watched the movement of my mind, the more it seemed utterly and deeply, number one, out of control, and number two, shameless. There was nowhere my mind would not go. But there's something about this practice of training the puppy. An untrained mind is out of control. But as you begin to train the mind with persistence and consistency and with kindness, it starts to sit a little bit longer. So I began to notice I'm actually a little more aware of my breath a little bit longer. And there was a certain degree of really kind of ineffable satisfaction about that. Just that sense of present moment attention. And then I noticed, as I was in the middle of a day, in the middle of a week, in the middle of the month, that when I brought in relaxation and combined it with concentration, there was this really, really cool shift. It was almost like my experience began to open up a little bit. I was aware of my breath, just watching my breath. And then I realized there was a little bit of tension in my belly. So when I kind of softened my belly, suddenly there was this flood of awareness and feeling in my belly that just felt so alive. As I continued to explore concentration as my practice, I also explored, because we were doing the metta practices, or the kindness, the well-wishing practices. I thought, well, what if I take my concentration practice and I kind of blend into it this sense of kindness and compassion and empathy and joy. And again, it kind of opened up my experience a little bit. So what you may find is when you combine concentration and relaxation, it opens up some really, really juicy spaces. And they're paradoxical. Someone once said to me, am I supposed to concentrate or am I supposed to relax? I thought about it for a moment. I said, yes. They seem contradictory. Concentration, we think of as kind of a willful, focused, laser quality. And we think of relaxation as sort of more open and spacious and more like the ocean and the vast sky. Combine them, though. Deep relaxation with concentration can be really, really juicy. And in that same way, if you can focus on concentration, focus on the breath, and bring in a sense of well-wishing, a sense of compassion or kindness, that also can be really, really juicy. So what I'd like to do is to explore just a little practice with you, exploring what it's like to combine these different qualities. So if you like, you can close your eyes. This will be a grand experiment, and as someone once said, there are only 3 possible outcomes here. You're going to feel better, you're going to feel worse, or you're going to feel the same. So prepare yourself for one of those. And as you close your eyes, notice where you feel the breath on the inside. And if you would now, for the next 3 breaths, notice how intimately you can feel the breath on the inside. And now, if you can sustain attention on the breath, and really what that means is, if you notice the mind wandering, just bring it back, start again. Feel the breath. And just sense through the body what could soften or relax right now. Could you in any way soften your belly? Could you soften the palms of your hands, the backs of your hands? Could you relax the soles of your feet? Could you relax your tongue and your lips? Take a few moments to explore what it's like for you to blend this sense of deep relaxation and calm with concentration. And now, if you wish, as you feel the breath, let the breath be your anchor. How intimately can you feel the breath And perhaps to blend with it a quality of kindness, a quality of deep care. How intimately can you feel the breath blending in a quality of compassion or kindness, a quality of loving presence? Take the next minute now, just to experiment on your own, combining this sense of one-pointed attention with this quality of deep relaxation and or this quality of kindness and loving presence. What do you feel on the inside right now? And can you make room for this? Can you allow this? You might now gently deepen the breath. If you like, you can let your body stretch and move in any way that feels good. If you like, you can open your eyes, or you can remain with them closed. I hope you got a sense of that. And there's something very powerful for me when I realized that part of the practice is embracing the paradox of deep relaxation with this quality of alertness and one-pointed attention. It's almost like relaxation is almost like the fuel that allows concentration to happen. And in that same way, one of the key techniques for deepening and to access concentration in the jhanas is that sense of one-pointed attention blended with loving presence or metta, kindness, compassion, and joy. So a few suggestions for your meditation practice in addition to these of cultivating relaxation, cultivating metta. If you have one particular anchor that you use, you might experiment using different objects of focus. If breath is kind of your go-to practice, try using sound. Sound can be such a cool anchor. Because I always find that when I use sound as an anchor, that it helps to open up awareness of impermanence and not self. Because you realize the sounds are beyond your control. You realize that all you can do is simply receive the sounds as they're happening. And you'll recognize that they're not personal. They're just passing through. At the same time, sometimes using the palms, fingers, and thumbs as your anchor, or the soles of the feet, can be really powerful. They can be very grounding, particularly if you find yourself really buffeted by lots of emotions or strong mental states. That sense of feeling deeply into the palms, soles of the feet, if you feel it right now, it almost like it shifts the center of gravity from the mind down deep into the soma, into the body. And one of my favorite things in walking meditation, when I remember, which is not all the time, is that you can do walking meditation very, very slow, and you can sort of note, move, lift, move in place as you're doing walking, naming the sensations. But if you're walking outside or you're walking fast, is that you can try using concentration on the different sense stores. As you're doing walking meditation, let the primary focus be on sounds. And just take that in for a little while. And then you might shift your attention to the visuals. noticing color and light and negative space. Then you might shift to the kinesthetic, to the sense of what your body feels like as you're walking through space. Then you might open your attention to smell and sense what it's like to hold that as your primary anchor. Taste is a little bit challenging, but you can play with that one as well. So rotating the objects of focus can be a really, really helpful way of making the practice fresh. Sometimes I find in my meditation that it's really helpful to set a strong intention in the beginning, to use concentration as a way of gathering, as a way of arriving, and then you can widen and broaden your attention, explore mindfulness, explore resting in presence. And a great technique, if you have Insight Timer, the access to the app, is you can use interval bells in your meditation. So quite often I'll use, I set mine for 5-minute interval bells. So for the first 5 minutes, I might focus on real focused concentration. And then the next bell, I might widen my attention a little bit and then widen it even more. I have found as well using the slow motion movement of the hands practice very, very helpful, just to sense how intimately can I feel that slow motion movement of the hands. It's a very powerful way of cultivating absorption. And the absorption has a very pleasurable quality to it sometimes that will lead to this sense of concentration that feels less effortful and more of a sense of concentration from the inside out. You can also notice that when you are distracted and when you're upset, try concentration. That is to say, when you are feeling really, really angry, what if you brought your attention just to the breath? 3 breaths on the inside. And notice how that sense of gathering might shift your relationship to the anger. And rather than being angry, you might find it more possible to be with your anger. Counting breath from 1 to 5 can be very, very helpful. If you want to take it out there, you can do longer counting periods. I also find comparing the length of this in-breath to the length of the in-breath before, again, moving to that sense of a more easeful sense of concentration. So those are some of the techniques that I have found very helpful in my practice, but a few suggestions on cultivating concentration in life. And again, think of yourself as that lion with the 4 legs of the stool, not knowing what to focus on. And what you can do is choose one thing you're going to do. And one of the coolest stories I ran across is the CEO of a big tech company who realized he wanted to lose 60 pounds. So he decided he was going to do one thing, and this is the one thing he did. He plotted his weight every day on an Excel spreadsheet. He weighed himself in the morning, he put it on an Excel spreadsheet, that's it. Just that one thing. And what he noticed was, over time, he didn't make it a big deal, that he wouldn't have the 3rd donut. Or he noticed he would park his car a little further away from where he was shopping, so it got a little more walking. And he said it was a 2-year process, but just that one thing helped to create a shift for him. My go-to practice every morning is I write down the 3 most important things to focus on for the day. I have about 150. But when I write down the 3 most important things, then I circle the most challenging one, and I do that one right away. That has made such a shift from tackle the hardest thing, get that sense of accomplishment, and then the rest of the day becomes a lot easier. And I just tell myself, if these 3 things get done, it's a great day. When you're in doubt, start on one small thing, just one small thing. I've taken on this practice for the last 1.5 years of cartooning, just doing a cartoon every day. And believe me, many of them are not very good. But there's so many times when I'll just sit there and it's like, I got nothing. I just got nothing. But I'll open my iPad and I start sometimes some interesting stuff comes through. So concentration is about one-pointed attention. It is sort of the antidote to a fractured mind. And giving the mind a job, give the puppy a job, can be really, really helpful. And just like you can't make awareness happen, you can cultivate the most optimal environment for it to happen. Concentration doesn't happen just at a snap of the fingers. Consider these factors of awakening: mindfulness or non-judging awareness, the capacity to investigate and really be with the granular quality of your inner experience, cultivating energy and resilience, cultivating a sense of joyous discovery, cultivating a sense of calm and tranquility and relaxation. These are what sets you up for concentration. And then, when you're in that concentrated experience, sometimes it can be with a sense of ease, but the attachment to the outcome is the challenge. Concentration is not so much about working harder, but it's about stepping back and cultivating a sense of relaxed and gentle focus. If you stop trying so hard and instead allow things to happen to you, there's a big shift. Just a minute or two left, but I wanted to share this one little reading. When an archer is shooting for nothing, he has all his skill. If he shoots for a brass buckle, he's already nervous. If he shoots for a prize of gold, he goes blind or he sees two targets. He's out of his mind. His skill has not changed, but the prize divides him. He cares. He thinks more of winning than of shooting, and the need to win drains him of power. In that same way, if your goal is to experience a concentrated mind, it's so helpful to remember all of the skillful means that can help you shift from straining to try to make it happen to cultivating an environment where concentration can arise. Ultimately, a concentrated mind is a calm mind. It's a mind that can help you open to recognize what is absolutely true, what is real, and it's a quality of mind that can cultivate a heart that can hold what you find. And so as you sit in your next meditation, you might take some time just to reflect on what cultivates the most optimal environment for you. You might explore ways that you can prepare your body so you can relax and really arrive and feel. When the mind wanders, to remember this quality of starting again. And then to look for ways that you can sustain attention on the object of your focus. And ultimately, concentration is here to open you to the present moment, to recognize the mystery of what it means to be alive. Thank you so much for your time and attention. I truly hope that this is helpful in your practice. May you and your mind have a wonderful time together, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Take good care.